Okay, so hello, I'm Erin. I'm your host. I'm so happy to be joining everyone here on Inspiring Insights for episode number 21 with Silvia Graber, The Root of Our Feelings. This one is going to be a really good chat because Silvia is a functional medicine health coach and also a registered holistic nutritionist. So this one is going to be great. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm from a small town from Buren, Newfoundland, and now I live in Toronto. I offer mindfulness services on a global scale online. And I also come from a long line of ancestors of Irish and English farmers, fishers and miners who didn't always have a chance to speak up. And now ever since I was born, I always knew that I wanted to get into the business of amplifying voices of people that I really love and enjoy. So, every day I wake up and I ask myself this question: what makes me feel alive? What makes me feel inspired? And the answer is always connecting with folks who have aligned themselves with their own healing ability and work with people and clients and patients who also do the same. So, that's what Inspiring Insights is all about. It's a space to share the passions of wellness providers, coaches, health practitioners, and hearing their own stories, alongside fans and audience members just like you. So this month, we are recording this February 3rd. So I just wanted to give a little shout out, although I recognize that, 1 month is not enough. This month is Black History Month. And I would like to acknowledge that in the beginning of our show today. So this year, actually, the theme for Black History Month, according to some American sources that I looked at, is Black family representation, identity, and diversity. So exploring the African diaspora and the spread of Black families across the world, more specifically in the sources that I looked at across the United States. And so I'm just going to, acknowledge that even in Canada, there are a lot of Canadian Canadian Africans here. And, they're not well represented in the wellness industry. So I just want to put that out there and say that because, when I'm going through and trying to find folks to, be on our podcast, be on our vodcast, it's really important that I want to value that time and that space and represent a platform that is representative of a lot of different folks in healthcare. And unfortunately, it's really not the case. And I'm seeing that more and more. So, I just want to acknowledge that and the history of, white supremacy on Black folks is terrible. And I wanted to read a poem by Audre Lorde today for that reason. So it's called A Litany for Survival. Some of you folks may have heard it, but I'll hop right in here. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward, at once, before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures. Like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard, nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. So that again is called a litany for survival. Copyright 1978 by Audre Lorde. And that's in the collected poems of Audre Lorde.
That's so beautiful.
So thank you, Silvia. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to, just take up that time and space to honor one of the great poets of our time, and especially for this month and going forward. I think it's really important to boost up those voices right now, and for white folks out there, especially, think about how much space you're creating and how much space you're taking up in spaces like the wellness industry, and who are you inviting into it? So thank you again. And without further ado, I wanted to welcome our guest today, Silvia Graber. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course, of course. So for everyone out there, Silvia Graber is a registered holistic nutritionist and a functional medicine health coach. She's also certified in therapeutic touch and energy healing. She incorporates functional medicine principles when working with clients, working with a root cause approach for all issues. She offers nutritional consultations, assessments, and individualized lifestyle and nutrition plans, as well as providing support for all of your health challenges. So with a focus on gut health and digestive wellness and emotional wellness, Silvia helps you to bridge that connection and the communication between your body and mind to achieve lasting wellness and balance. She's also experienced working with blood sugar imbalances, autoimmune diseases, hormone imbalances, allergies, and more. So Silvia provides a no-nonsense assistance in your quest for wellness, and of course, offered with compassion and patience. And for that sounds amazing. I'm excited to dig right in. Thank you again for being here, Silvia.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome.
Of course. And for folks who are listening right now as well, I'm trying to, establish a repertoire of really cool wellness practitioners across Canada for now. So Silvia, you're out in Salt Spring Island, off the coast of BC, and I'm excited to hear your wisdom and to hear your knowledge tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get right into it, shall we?
Sure.
I want to know what drew you to the path of functional medicine, holistic nutrition, and maybe even, the energy modalities as well that your bio mentions, and what makes up you so far as now?
It's a long story. But yeah, it really started early, in my early 20s. Well, actually, I started more along the natural health and healing in my teenage years. I took it upon myself when I was about 17 to become vegetarian, to the horror of my family. And I always say, my mother refused to cook for me, so I had to really teach myself. So that's really when I started diving into, all about nutrition. So I really had to learn, just because I had to. And I started teaching myself and reading books and studying and, looking up recipes and finding out, the proper nutrient components of food. And so it started early. And then from then it moved on to in my 20s. So I kind of stayed with that. I think I just have always been interested in natural health and healing. That's always just been part of my lifestyle. But in my 20s, I started experiencing a lot of depression and not so much anxiety until later, but really depressive episodes. And I think in my quest to really understand and try and heal myself from that, I started exploring different ways to heal myself. And I wasn't quite sure where to go from there. So that's, I was really brought into the area of meditation, and I got involved with an energy healer who was my meditation teacher. And she really taught me really the essence of getting into my body, because I realized many years later, as I, got deeper into this work, that I really was not in my body. So a lot of the issues that I was having in my 20s, which, was a lot of body image issues, a lot of addictive tendencies, a lot of self-harm activities that I was doing, it was so unconscious, in the sense that I don't think I was fully aware of why I was making these choices for myself. I was just so immersed in the, I guess, the world of that it was really, it was sort of hard to get out of that. So I knew from working with these teachers that I needed to get back into my body to really get those answers, let my body tell me. And it was amazing. It was really such a powerful path, in the sense of, it was almost like reclaiming what I had put aside. So all these stored feelings that I had that, were really driving the drivers of my activities that I was, and the choices that I was making for myself. And that, that became sort of my world. And then I got involved with shamanic healing. And I actually studied with some elders in Peru for many years. I went up there and I did an apprentice with the medicine people up there. And that's part of my heritage. So I think I was drawn to that tradition just because I am Chilean and I have Peruvian ancestry as well. So I think that was part of what the draw was, to really understand and know a little bit more about my own ancestry and my own history in my family. But that was the driving force for why I ended up, starting to heal and starting to get better. Wow. And I brought that back after I finished my apprenticeship and I finished my studies with the healing, and I started working with people to actually do energy healing work with people. And at some point I think I realized that what the service that I was providing, just doing this energy healing for people, wasn't enough. Like, it felt like people were coming to me because they had these, a lot of pain. They were dealing with a lot of issues, whether it was physical or emotional. And I would give them this energy healing, but it felt to me like, okay, they felt better, but I was starting to question, are they really getting better? Is this something that it's almost started feeling like I was just providing them with a quick relief and not really accessing the root cause of what their issues was. So I think I started looking for more answers from there. And then that I just fell along into the lines of holistic nutrition. And I felt that just when that sort of came on my lap, sort of accidentally, through coworkers that I was working with who were also part of that practice, I just felt like, wow, that feels right. That feels like almost like that piece that was missing, that I needed in terms of understanding. I think my quest for understanding has been since I was really little, really just trying to find the truth of things. And so I think that was part of it, just really trying to understand and what makes us tick, basically, what makes us a driver for all of us in terms of, the choices we make. And then I started studying with the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, and that was fantastic course, absolutely wonderful. And I started practicing, but then even then it was still like, there's still something that's missing. There's still something not there. And I started searching for more. And then the functional medicine path, I started hearing about it from different sources and from different colleagues. And I felt like, oh, okay, that's something I want to explore more. So I found a school that felt right, that felt like it was a really good match for me. And that was the School of Applied Functional Medicine, based out of the States. So I did an online program with them. And that was it. That felt like, finally we have, it was like that final piece and sort of my knowledge that I wanted to fill in. And it just feels like I've come full circle now, where I started off with just the energy path, and then getting into nutrition, understanding then that, okay, food and nutrition is not the whole picture, and neither is emotions and energy. So what the functional medicine seems to kind of bring all those into full circle. And so I feel now I feel more like I have all these areas to draw from when I work with people, that it feels much more complete now. So and here I am today. So.
Wow, what a journey it has been, Silvia. Thank you so much for sharing, you know, a little bit of that, a tidbit of it. I'm sure, you know, as the years have gone by, it's been eye-opening in so many different ways. And
for sure.
I resonate with you, because I actually started the opposite way. I started in, you know, in physical medicine and in kinesiology, human kinetics, and personal train folks, and then realized I had to learn more about nutrition, and then realized I wanted to do naturopathic medicine. And then in that, even I still wanted to go more into like spiritual medicine. So it's funny how now, you know, the tool belts that we all wear, we have to be really aware of what tools are in them, right? And keep them sharp and keep them active, and offer folks exactly what we know. So you know, I agree, like broadening your tool belt is so important. So it's nice to see yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for folks, Silvia, who are listening that, you know, may or may not know some things about, you know, holistic wellness and alternative or complementary, you know, modalities, I'll call them. What in specifics can you maybe explain a little bit, you know, what's the difference between functional medicine and holistic nutrition and all of that?
Well, they're sort of very much a complement. I find that they both look at the body and wellness in a really holistic sense. They're both incorporate like all aspects of wellness, which is, you know, diet, stress levels, toxic load, sleep, all these different aspects that make up wellness or illness in us. The holistic nutrition tends to be more specific in terms of diet. So it's more focusing on food and diet and how that has an impact on somebody's wellness. It dives a little bit into all those other areas, but it's not so much focused in terms of pathology as functional medicine is. Functional medicine is more, they're both science-based approach, but I find functional medicine is almost taking it a few steps further into the science of it, and really understanding the intricacy of the body systems and cellular metabolism, and really getting to understand how the body works as a, you know, as a team. Really, nothing works in isolation, and how that contributes to illness or wellness. And food is also included in there. That just makes up one part of the picture, but it's more of a, for me, it feels more like what's the underlying thing? What's the underlying driver of what makes somebody not well? And so asking the questions of why. So you have a symptom. It's not just about giving a pill or even a supplement, you know, to rectify that. It's asking, okay, well, why is that? You know, why is that needed? You know, is there an imbalance that's driving that? Like, so for example, somebody needs magnesium. Okay, well, what's going on in their body and in their lifestyle possibly that that they're not getting that. So that functional medicine really looks at all of that and addresses that, instead of just, you know, giving that rapid relief of, okay, just give you a magnesium capsule. You know, we really strive to understand what's driving the mechanism underneath that to create that imbalance in the first place, and then really working from the bottom up to establish balance. Because, you know, once really understanding the body, we really get to see that if the body has all the tools that it needs to function optimally, it will. It will respond really quickly and really well, but it's a matter of giving it the tools, but also not giving it those things that might be impeding it, right? So that's letting the body heal itself in that essence. It's not about like tackling the imbalance or tackling the deficiency or tackling the disease process, whatever that might be directly. It's actually, helping to address the foundational needs of the body first, because that needs to be in place before you go into the esoteric reasons why this person might not be well, whether it's a diagnosis or whatever it is that might be, going on for that person. It's, are they getting the foundational needs that this body needs in order to function optimally? So for me, that's the most important part of functional medicine is that part. And holistic nutrition for me is that nutritional aspect. That's just, obviously it's a huge part of that as well, but that's they just complement each other really nicely.
Yeah, I thank you. And I think you explained that really well for someone who, may or may not have ever went to go see or thought to go see a functional medicine practitioner, because, there's so many different practitioners out there nowadays that it's hard to know. And I think also there's a lack of understanding between practitioners, who does what. And there's also some ego in there as well, like, oh, I don't want to recommend or refer this patient to here because I don't think it's getting to the root of the problem, versus I don't want to recommend this patient here because they're just going to address symptoms, so yeah. It's interesting that you point that out. And yeah, I see it more and more that there's a general lack of understanding of what practitioners actually do. And Wikipedia probably doesn't help that much. All right, so this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast as well, to really focus on just make people more aware of what each person can actually offer. Yeah, it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The question I always get a lot is also how I differ from, say, going to a conventional. What's the difference between functional medicine and conventional medicine? And it's pretty huge in my opinion. It's the problem that I see what's happening now, and I think this is why functional medicine is really exploding as an industry right now, or it's really starting to, at least, is because conventional medicine, which is more modern medicine, is treating chronic disease. And from my understanding, I think of the way that conventional medicine works in modern medicine, it's not really meant to treat chronic disease, because it's very well suited for acute care. When you go to a doctor, it's what I feel lacking, and this is just from feedback from my own personal experience, but also from my clients, what's lacking is that sort of questioning of, you come to your doctor with a health issue, and you don't very often get, okay, well, why are you having that issue? It's just, okay, you have this high blood pressure, or you have this high blood sugar, and it's a treatment. It's a treatment and a diagnosis, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that's absolutely necessary. In so many cases of, illness and disease that is, happening right now, is absolutely necessary. But when you're dealing with something that's a chronic disease, like, for example, anything like rheumatoid arthritis, or even type 2 diabetes, which is actually a slowly progressing manifestation of imbalance, it's not an acute disease. It's something that's been, brewing and growing and, for years in most people. And so that's something that is, in my opinion, it's sort of missing the mark when it's being treated as something acute, like an acute care. It's, so where a functional medicine practitioner or a doctor can help you is actually start to help you understand, okay, why did that imbalance, why did that, diabetes, or why did that high blood pressure, why is it occurring in the first place? and understanding the necessity for treatment when it's needed, but it's asking the why. And it's asking, okay, what in your lifestyle or what in your surroundings has contributed to this? And really working on that and focusing on that instead of right away, almost like instinctively going for the treatment, which again, and I'll just going to stress that because I'm in no way putting down that, this field of medicine at all, because I completely honor and respect and acknowledge the necessity and the importance of modern medicine. But I'm finding it doesn't fit in terms of working with certain conditions. And I think it's lacking. That lack of understanding is really missing in a lot of care that's happening right now, and which is why I feel so blessed to be providing the service that I do, because it's really for the first time asking, taking the time with clients, and where they may never have been asked this before by any provider that they've had, certain questions about their lifestyle, or certain questions about even their childhood, or how they grew up, or what influences, or how's their emotional state of health. These kinds of things are not really part of the discussion when they go see their primary care physician. So it's actually it's very new to a lot of clients when I I can bring in these questions, but that's a lot of times they're very appreciative of that. They're very appreciative of that because they've never had that sort of attention before. So from their providers. So I think I feel that's the big difference there.
Wow. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's true. And the emergence of chronic illness is quite, I think, a new phenomenon, right? And just in terms of our life expectancy, we're living longer. We're expected to do a lot more things, I think, in terms of productivity and all that. And so we're trying to push through that and be productive, and which is totally great. Try to live as much as you can, even aside the fact that you might have, osteoarthritis or, whatever. So yeah, it's something important that you really mentioned there. It's like the difference between acute and chronic. I'm interested, Silvia, and going back to the actual title of this chat is, the root of our feelings, because you're talking about the root cause a lot. So, in that, and I'm interested for folks, if you're watching this replay, maybe put it in the comments, yes, no, maybe a why, why you're actually thinking that. What is the root of our feelings? Is it the mind? Is it the gut? Because we have a lot of information now that talks about how, the gut is related to it's almost like a third limb of our nervous system. Right. So we think, maybe everything comes from the brain, but actually maybe it doesn't. Who knows? So I'm curious for folks watching this, write it in the comments below. And how about your take on that, Silvia?
Yeah, it's like the chicken and the egg question, like what started what. It's been very interesting because, in my research and in my studies of, learning about the microbiome, it's such a fascinating world there, and it's, when I was really deep into my studies of learning all about the microbiome and the different, species and the influences they have in, neurology and in the brain, I was just like, wow, like the one question I had was, well, who's in charge? It's really, it's really mind-blowing, and it's a little scary when you really get into it. It's like when you really start, going down that rabbit hole, it's like, wow, that's you kind of feel like I'm not in charge. Like, I think I'm in charge, but I don't even know who I is, because you realize these bugs are sort of everywhere, and they make their own neurotransmitters. They make their own hormones, they influence so many aspects of us. And it's, there's a lot to be said for, the fact that, the vagus nerve, which runs from the brain to the gut, 80% of that communication it runs this way, like from the gut to the brain. So it's the gut informing the brain 80% of the time. So the state of the gut is huge when it comes to our mental health. And, you know, from what I learned all about what happens when you have some type of overgrowth that can occur, and you can get over permeability in the gut lining, and how you can have a substance like lipopolysaccharides, which is basically like a substrate of, you know, the microbes themselves, that in a leaky gut can actually, you know, get into the bloodstream and penetrate the blood-brain barrier. And when that can occur, that can actually influence or impede or interfere with our neurotransmitters, you know, in our brain, like especially dopamine and serotonin. What kind of influence does that have in, you know, so many people who have mood disorders? And there's been a lot of research that has been going on in the last few decades about this, and more along the lines of orthomolecular medicine, where I know that there's some places and some studies in the States more that are, some doctors are treating their patients who have like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder with high dose nutrients. And actually, in many, many cases, these people have been able to get off their medications, but there's some imbalance that's happening there in the nutrients and their ability to absorb for various reasons. That's causing that imbalance, because neurotransmitters are made from amino acids. Amino acids are made from proteins. Proteins need to be broken down in the gut. So it all starts there. And for me, I've just seen so many clients where you can't have one without the other. So all the clients that I've had who've had digestive gut issues have a corresponding emotional imbalance happening in the sense of their mood imbalances, whether it's depression or anxiety or some other type of imbalance. It always seems to come with that territory. It's not really isolated, and which, you know, is a given, because our body is not separate. It's you know, even when we have microbial overgrowth in our gut, like even something like yeast overgrowth, a lot of times we might not even feel it in our gut, but we feel it in other places in our bodies that we don't attribute to a microbial overgrowth or a yeast overgrowth, like pain in our joints, like headaches, like brain fog. Those are all sort of really prime symptoms of some type of microbial or yeast overgrowth in the body. And some people might, oh, my digestion's just fine. I hear that all the time, but they also have all these other symptoms going on that they're not associating with it. But from all that I've learned about it, it's like, oh, there's huge connection between those two, you know, seemingly far apart body parts. And I see that also in my own experience that I had through my journey of healing, that I was, you know, really addressing my issues, thinking it was all about just emotions, thinking it was all about just healing myself and forgiving and letting go of, you know, things that I, you know, hurts and pains that I had. That's a huge part of it, but also what I learned, you know, in my studies of, you know, in nutrition and functional medicine, is that there's so much more to the story. You know, it's never just one or the other. It's usually a combination of both. You know, there's some type of digestive gut imbalance that's happening, and I really do truly believe that, because that is where everything really starts. You know, everything really starts with what you put into your mouth. And everything starts with a thought in the first, you know, and then that manifests into an action. And, but everything really starts, what's happening in your stomach, what's happening with your digestion. Are you breaking down that food? And if you're not, then that could lead to a whole host of, it's almost like this domino effect I see happening, you know, of a whole host of issues that could all be, if you really trace it back and go through that timeline, It's like because you're too stressed when you're eating. And I actually have seen this, and it seems like a really simple explanation, but I've seen this time and time again in my clients. It's like, they're dealing with these mood imbalances. And when I bring them back to that real basic chewing your food well, because when you're chewing your food well and sitting down to eat and being nice and calm when you're eating and not being in a hurry and not being rushed, you're actually digesting those nutrients better. And when that happens, you're making your body's better able to make those neurotransmitters that support your brain, that support your mood, that support everything you do, your drive, everything. And when that's not happening, when you're doing the opposite, how that can impact you, it's such a funny thing, because I've given talks on this in terms of digestion and the importance of it. And it's really blown people's minds because they really don't think about it. Something like chewing well is something that is so basic, but nobody does it. Nobody does it, like, how are you chewing your food till it's a mush, and before you swallow it? And nobody's doing this. So it's almost like I've had to really go back and start almost retrain those foundational basics in a lot of people, and getting them to, eat with chopsticks. Start with that and start and seeing how that feels and seeing what happens with that. And the improvements that come from that, just that one change, is pretty amazing. Just from that one little switch in habits is really sets it off, just like the domino effect can happen with, in the negative consequences. The domino effect can also happen with the positive consequences. So I've seen, people's brain fog really improve with really simple, basic changes to their digestion and choices that they're making. Of course, not just digestion, but, hydration, all these things which are all part of that same territory. But it's really remarkable what kind of difference it can make for somebody when you're really paying attention to those things.
Whew, amen to that. Amen. Oh, that was so good, Silvia. There's so much in that. Oh my goodness. I just want to sing that song, the head bones connect to the neck bone, and so forth. But literally not at all. It's like the brain is connected directly to the gut. And just because we can't see it, we forget it, right?
Exactly.
And mindful eating, to your point, yes, that's like the most important thing someone can do, honestly, is sit down without a newspaper, without your phone, without the TV on, and just eat.
Exactly.
How simple. It's too simple. People want a more complicated answer than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also just in the complexities of that, we think we're eating healthy food, but we haven't, we're eating, watching TV or whatever else. So it's like, yeah, we're putting good nutrients in us, but we're not actually absorbing that and creating the conditions for those nutrients to go further. So yeah, it's it's a catch-22.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Even when you take supplements, orally, same thing. Your gut just may not be prepared to handle it. You may have to take that supplement with food, but you're taking it without, and then it's not absorbed properly and everything else. So
exactly right.
And that's something I wanted to ask you as well. There's so many questions. Oh man, I love it. You're so in depth. Sorry, I think I cut you off there. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
That's okay. You go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So much. So, on that train of eating, I wanted to touch on and get your opinion because of your background in holistic nutrition. Let's talk about some of these fad diets that are out right now. And I call them fads lightly because some of them, really work for folks, and that's great. Some of them don't at all, and that's also okay because it's good to know what doesn't work for your body. But if you could shed a light maybe on, some of the main ones, like I'm thinking keto, I'm thinking paleo diet, like high carb or low carb diets. What are your thoughts on those kinds of diets?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, because it's
Yeah.
because it's so multifaceted in the sense of why somebody's doing a diet in the first place. So that's the number one question is I ask, what's the interest in you to do that kind of diet. So um, the majority of people's interest these days in terms of any diet is really weight loss. At least that's what I'm finding is sort of the predominant reason why somebody would do something like that. And what I found is that no matter what diet you do, whether it's paleo or keto or vegan or the potato diet or the soup diet or whatever it might be, even the Subway diet, you can lose weight. You can lose weight with any diet. And the reason why is because any specific diet will be a change to what you're currently doing. And generally that involves less calories than what you're doing. So that's not to say that calories is all that counts, but in terms of a short-term effect, that's the effect it can have, is that, you lose weight, but in terms of lasting change, that's always the question that I bring on people is like, if you're interested in doing the paleo diet, so what are your long-term goals? And a lot of people just have short-term goals. Their short-term goals is to fit into their dress for this wedding or this party or, this event or something. Or they've been, diagnosed with something and they know they need to lose weight quickly. That's never a good idea in general to lose weight quickly because it's too much of a shock on the body. In most conditions, I always just look at, what the body, how the body responds to any change that is being given. And I think sudden and absolute like that can be quite a shock. And so there's various ways that the body can respond depending on the person. So with these specific diets, some people thrive on the paleo diet. Some people thrive on the keto. It's really individual. So any type of diet, because we're all so biochemically different, we're absolutely different. So I never have used protocols in my practice because it takes away that whole aspect of individuality. When you're using protocols, you're basically saying this sort of diet or lifestyle is applicable to everybody. And that's just not reality. That's not how it works. And so it can serve you, and you can thrive on it for a long time. And that's your particular body that really thrives on that. So it's really, for me, there is no, this is good or bad. It's really what's good for you, what's good for your particular body. And so for your particular body, it might be something like paleo. And whether it's paleo that are you following it to the book in the sense of the information out there, or are you really, then there's so many various variations of each diet. So there's like an easy keto, or what do they call it? The lazy keto. There's different varieties of paleo. One is more whole foods based, and one is a little bit more, using products that is not technically paleo, but there's so many products out there that are like paleo bars and paleo shakes. And it's not, if you really think about it, it's not really paleo. Paleo is really going back to whole foods, how our ancestors ate, when we were picking fruit from trees and we were hunting our own food. So that's sort of the idea, is like the more natural, the better. So the way that it's sort of been westernized, many of these diets have been westernized, and it's not, it's sort of taking it out of context. But it's really, again, I just go back to, it's really what's best for your particular body, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I don't really have an opinion. I never prescribe diets, specific diets for people. I really just see what their body is responding to or what it's not responding to, and what I feel would be best, their bodies might be best served with eating a particular way. And we give it a try and see how they respond. And if they're doing really well, then, and there's little tweaks that happen along the way, but nothing is really static in terms of diet. And it shouldn't be. It should be changeable. It should be variable. It should have a whole variety of different kinds of foods, ideally. some people can't do that because of sensitivities or other issues that they're having. And that's okay. But, you know, everybody will be different. That's, I guess, the bottom line with those types of diets.
Wow. Yes. 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 Also decolonize things in wellness. Good. Yeah. And yeah, it's so individual, right? It's hard to even say. And in the world of, you know, people are just seeing things on Instagram. They see it for 1 second and it plants a seed in their brain. Mm-hmm. They see the word keto, they see the word paleo. They don't even know what it means. And they just, you know, go out and buy these paleo bars, like you said. Right.
And what I find too is it could actually be detrimental to people if they really don't educate themselves before they take upon themselves to start a diet. So somebody may want to do a keto diet because they've heard, oh, my friend lost a lot of weight on that. That's great for them, but they're taking this upon themselves if they don't educate themselves firstly on their own bodies, but also on the diet itself. It might have detrimental effects because a keto diet is very high in fat, right? So what does that do? If that person's liver, for example, is not up to par to handle all those fats, if that person's ability to change over from sugar to fat burning is not up to par, there's going to be a kind of an ugly adjustment there. It could be quite uncomfortable for that person. But more specifically, it's like, you know, we have to look at all those, you know, is my body suited for this diet? And not too many people ask themselves that. And that could, you know, that diet can be backfire on them. Just like, you know, another example is I always see people really quickly taking on detox diets. Like, just, I'm going to detox just because, you know, I feel gross, or, you know, I need to do this, you know, once a year. And they really don't really understand the steps involved in proper detox and what could happen if you don't do that properly, and, you know, you don't address all those stages properly. So for example, if you go into wanting to detox and you're somebody who poops every other day, not a good idea. You know, you want to address that first before you want to make sure, because when you're detoxing, you're going to be moving all this stuff into circulation, and that stuff needs to come out. And if you're constipated, that can back up and that can be recirculated back into the body. And then you get what's called, you know, what they call the die-off, or they call the bad detox effects. That's, you know, most likely that's what's happening, is that you haven't really taken the care to really, you know, address those things if they're actually working. Do you have the actual nutrients in your body? Are you getting enough of those nutrients that are needed to conjugate those toxins out of your body? And you need specific nutrients. So there's so much involved in that. It's not, and so I see people jumping a little too quickly into just trying this and trying that, and not, you know, unfortunately, you know, having maybe some, you know, negative effects. But I think a lot of that can really just be rectified with a little bit of education. So just a little bit of, you know, researching on that person's part who's interested in doing some diet, or working with a practitioner that actually can guide them through something that's going to be a little safer and healthier for them. But a little bit more self education is needed, I think, with all this. There's so many books and so much stuff out there that it's very confusing. But that's where I feel like, okay, maybe, you know, for somebody who really wants to change their lifestyle and change their diet sort of more on a long-term basis, for long-term change and wellness, then that's maybe where a practitioner can actually help them, guide them a little bit better.
Yes, thank you for that. It's so important to have, you know, and establish a framework and a network of practitioners that you really trust, that you really can lean on for support, because a lot of us try to do it on our own. And, you know, we do live in the information age of, you know, you just ask Google anything, right? So it's really important to be humble in that journey and ensure that you still have those supports in place. And, you know, friends are helpful. That friend that you lost, you know, that lost 40 pounds may be helpful, but also a practitioner who knows this stuff is going to probably be more useful for you. not to mention that society is just fat phobic in general. And
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we're all too happy to hop on any sort of diet to see
Yeah.
what we can excise out of the body. And, you know, that in itself has its roots in, you know, kind of us versus them thinking and detaching from our own bodies. And that's almost, you know, something else like in mindset that you can work with a mindset coach or what have you.
I think that's a deeper societal issue that will take up a whole other webinar that we can talk about.
Oh man, yes. Definitely. I want to actually have an episode on that because that would be super great and super, you know, it's something that we need to highlight. Silvia, we're nearing the end. Oh my goodness, we could literally talk for hours about this. Maybe let some folks know, and I'll put it in the show notes, how you can contact Silvia. But before that, you know, what are the steps involved if someone wants to actually come see you, Silvia? Maybe we can just chat about that.
Well, I have a link that I can leave with you. And basically you sign up for just a free discovery call, which is basically just like a chat with me for about 30 minutes where we discuss, you know, what your main complaints or your main issues are, your main concerns are in terms of your health and your wellness. We don't get into anything in really deeply. It's more just a get to know you session, and where I talk to you about my rates and also about how I work with my clients. And then from then, you have the option of signing up with me for, I offer my sessions in 3-session packages. So I decided to do that a while back just because I felt like single sessions weren't really enough to assist somebody the way that I wanted to assist people. And I felt like 3 sessions at least is sort of the minimum where somebody can actually benefit from seeing where, you know, recommendations that I might be giving might be a little bit more beneficial, or you might see the effects of something more long-term. So 3-session packages, or you can do a 3-month or 6-month. If you sign up for those programs, it's a little bit cheaper than if you were just to buy multiple 3-session packages like ongoing. And then something new that I've offered in the last little while is I have started offering a single one-off session, and this involves no intake forms, no real health history, which is always a part of my 3-session package where I get your labs, I get all your health information. So my single sessions that I've started offering is more just a Q&A. So if you're somebody who just has some questions and maybe is not ready or maybe not sure that you want to invest in a package with me, you can sit down with me it's a 70-minute call, and you can sit down with me, and it's a bit cheaper than, quite a bit cheaper than my packages. But it's not really going to be getting into your in-depth health history so much, but it is an opportunity for you to ask your questions more on a general knowledge basis. So I've just started offering that just recently. But all my info is on my website, so you can go in there and book a session with me, and you book your own, choose a time that works for you, and then start that process off. So.
Amazing. And I am just, for folks who are watching the replay who registered for this webinar, so you'll be getting this straight into your inbox. I just actually made available Silvia's free offer that she's giving you. It's a gift. She's offering free 5 key strategies for immune health. So go ahead and grab that. It's just in the offer section that you can see here on Webinar Jam. So thank you so much, Silvia. This has been really, really useful knowledge, and you know, it's apparent that you've really done the work and that you've dove deep, very deep into different aspects of medicine and health, and you're quite aware of the research and also, you know, the emotions that go on and the spiritual things that happen and the physical things that can occur. You know, all complex issues that occur simultaneously when someone is experiencing a health condition. So thank you so much. And I appreciate even early in the call when you said, I think you mentioned something about, you know, when someone is ill versus when someone is going to see a health practitioner, because it's, you can be technically quote unquote healthy and still seek out care. Preventative care is really important as well. And that's something that functional medicine coaches and holistic nutritionists for sure are really good at and they excel at. So
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really great.
Yeah, of course, Silvia. I do have a final question before we go, and I ask this to all my guests here, and that is really just to get to know you a little bit more. And that question is, what keeps you inspired?
Wow, what keeps me inspired? That's a big one. I think for me is always, and I go through periods still where I lose my faith, I lose my hope. And I'm not a religious person, but I do feel that I do have a deep sense of something other. And so for me, it's remembering that part of myself that's linked to something other. And it feels like, and I can't describe it in anything logical, but it does feel like it's got my back. And so for me, I don't call it by any name or anything, but it just feels like there's some deeper part that we all have, I think, that we can connect to, which is, we can call it our higher selves, we can call it our true selves, whatever it is that we want to call it. But if we can tap into that, even in those times that we feel like we don't have much drive, we don't have much hope, we don't have much of anything really, if we can connect to that, then, we can find a little spark there. But it's always for me, it's just remembering that light, remembering what my passion is, what my drive is. And that's really to be of service. It's really just to be of service to people and the planet as much as I can. And that's my ultimate passion and my goal. And I guess my, what drives everything.
Wow, that's really nice to know. And yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. It goes in waves, and even as health practitioners, it goes up and down. So so thank you, Silvia Graber. Again, episode 21. This has been Inspiring Insights. Thanks so much for being here with us, for gracing us with your wisdom and your knowledge.
Thank you.
And your beautiful presence. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for everyone out there, thank you again for tuning in. If you don't follow us on Facebook, we're at Reawaken Co. If you don't follow us on Instagram, we're at the same, Reawaken Co. Our YouTube as well is Reawaken Co. Inspiring Insights. And we just started a Patreon blog. So go check us out there. Again, Reawaken Co. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Take good care.
Thank you.